her social club had an outing, and there was going to be a triple date. And her roommate asked me if I would be her date for the outing, and I was. I couldn't even tell you today who was with Mozelle. Didn't pay any attention to him. Probably didn't hurt. And when we got back at the end of the day, I thought, next year I'm going to ask her out. And so I did. And so that would have been my senior year and her junior year. And we dated a few times during the senior year. And but I wanted to get to know her better. And so we did date a few times. And that year, I found out that Thanksgiving she was going to stay at school and not make the long trip home. And of course, I only live 55 miles away. And I thought, oh my goodness, because everybody leaves school. So I called my parents and told them that, wow, I could not make it home for the Thanksgiving holiday because I had a term paper that if I didn't get it finished, there's just no way I was going to make it for the semester. And sure enough, the next morning, she and I got up and went out and started playing tennis. And we were really having a lot of fun enjoying one another. And about noontime, she said, oh, by the way, my parents are coming today. And she said, here at noon, said, you can have lunch with us. Oh, I said, yeah, sure, we'll do that. And I had lunch with them. Got back to the room and called my folks and said, set a plate, I'll be home. And my dad, when I got home, said, boy, that was a fast term paper. Well, I said, you really get focused on something, you can get locked in. And dropped it at that. They never pursued it any further. And then,
you know, the story that you told me yesterday that I found so interesting, you know where I'm going with this, Mozelle, is about a trip that was taken that you got a little surprise about that trip because you went to visit Bill's family, is that right?
Yes.
And he left you there.
He did.
With his family.
Yes.
well,
But that, to be fair, the president of the school called and said, Bill, we need you to make a trip on behalf of the school. The campus is closed down, so what am I going to do? And the simplest thing was for him to leave me with his mom and dad, and he took off for the long trip. It was a full
it was a two-week course trip. I had to be the college's representative on the course trip. And Benson, that's the year I had graduated and I was teaching. And she was her senior year, and when she didn't even expect me to be in school because I graduated in summer school, and 2 weeks later school started. And it was after I graduated, the school asked me, would I please stay 1 year and teach accounting and business math. I said, yes, I'll do that. If you'll cancel all my debt, I'll do that. We did get that worked out pretty good. So I was in the registration line. She had come through. She'd already registered in her classes. And she said, what are you doing here? And she sat down and I said, well, I'm going to be here this year. I'm teaching accounting. He said, oh, I didn't know. She said, I'm having to take accounting. Oh, you are? She said, yeah, I'd have taken your class if I'd known you were going to teach. She said, I have Dr. Hedrick at 12 o'clock. I said, you don't realize this morning Dr. Hedrick asked me to switch classes with him. You're in my class. Which immediately got me in frantic because I was a teacher and she was a student. So I had to go to Dr. Benson and talk to him and tell him that she's my student and I'm going to be teaching and we have no alternative because she has to take the class to graduate. And he said if I could be objective, he would agree to our dating. Well,
objective about her grade?
About her grades. Yeah, he did. He kept grades. This was only the second time that had happened at Harding. And the first time it happened, they ended up getting married too. But, so that's, yeah, boy, so that was really created a lot to do about, even in class. But
Now,
we made it.
after you all got married, from what I understand from our talking yesterday, the Lord took you a lot of different places.
Oh, man.
You guys have moved around, and in those early years, the first few years of your marriage together, you were far away from any close family members. Is that correct?
Halfway across the country.
And so, I mean, just list for everybody the different places that you've lived as a married couple.
Married, we were in Little Rock. We were there for a few months. Had our first anniversary in California. We were there for a year. Opening came up in Little Rock, and they transferred me back to Little Rock. We were there for about 3 years, and I got transferred to Denver, and we were there for about 3.5 years, and got transferred to Omaha, and there about 3.5 years, and got transferred to the corporate office.
On the
And
West Coast.
on the West Coast, over in California. Once I was there, I mean, there was no place to go but there, so that's where we stayed then for the next 25 years.
25 years there.
25 years in California.
Now, each of those places that you talked about with me yesterday, you all tried your best to get involved in the work of the local church because your faith was very, very important to you. Mozelle, I was very impressed yesterday as you shared with me the importance that I think you mentioned your mother, her influence, and really stressing on you to live by biblical principles. So that's been a guiding light in your life even before meeting Bill.
Yes.
Yeah. And so then as you all got married, that commitment to faith continued, and you guys have carried that in different places. So the question I want to ask you is, in all those different places that you've been, talk to me just a little bit about how you have tried, aside from all the ways in which, I mean, I know you've taught Bible classes for children in those different places, and Bill's taught adult Bible classes and worked with WEI and over in Albania and different places. But in addition to all the service that you have done for the sake of the kingdom, I would like to hear just a little bit about your personal walk with Christ and about how that you have tried in your marriage to deepen one another's faith and to deepen one another's walk with Christ. How you've tried to encourage each other, or the things that you've tried to do to help deepen one another's faith walk.
Go ahead.
We've always been very close to God in our lives together. I think one of the beauties of our marriage was Mozelle could sense if I was having problems, if things weren't going the way that they should go. And at that point in time, she would always be an extreme encouragement to me to think about this in terms of what God would have us to do, and that always paid tremendous dividends when it was done. And I always respected her advice in that matter. Never really did question it. We were always dedicated to saying what each decision was, what do we need to do that's the best decision that God would have us to do, that's not just helping us, but helping the church and grow the church. And of course our daughter, and what did it mean to her in her life. And California was different. We went to a church that I don't know that they had ever encouraged any of their young people to go to a Christian college anywhere. Well, that was our background. We were solid Christian education. And we wanted our daughter to be Christian education. And sure enough, she did. So we were second generation Christian education. A third generation Christian education sitting out here tonight in our family. We think there'll be fourth generation Christians, Christian
No pressure.
education. So we've always encouraged one another.
How much is that going to cost?
In making the most of our faith opportunities. What will help others? And I always appreciated Mozelle's desire and press in that area. She got deeply involved with our youth when others didn't. They didn't have a youth program when we went to California. And she got another lady interested, and the two of them really began helping the youth, bringing them together, taking them at every opportunity where they could meet with other youth. At that point in time, it was First Friday Fellowship. Many of you may not even know that term. Many of you do. First Friday Fellowship is when youth of different congregations got together for devotionals, and it really helped them grow together and grow to see that there are other Christians around, and they could meet and be with other Christians. And our daughter did have opportunity to attend a Christian school for 2 years while we were in California, and that was excellent.
You know, I know faith has been such a bedrock foundation for each of you individually, and you have centered your marriage upon your commitment to Christ and your commitment to the workings of His church and of the kingdom of God. On a practical level, when you think about arriving at this point of 60 years of marriage together, I have a question that I think many of us, that I honestly have, and I think many of us would have this question. You have two individuals that are free-thinking human beings with likes and dislikes, with personal tastes and beliefs and all of that, and you're trying to come together as one in marriage. And that effort requires tremendous effort and tremendous work to try to come together as one through the ups and the downs and remain committed to each other even through the times of tremendous hardship and difficulty. If you had one piece of advice to speak into those of us that are behind you in this journey of marriage, something that you've learned through your personal experience along the way that you would pass on. I mean, if you could even think of it in terms of if you could travel back in time and tell your younger selves what you know now, what one piece of advice do you think you'd give?
You must be committed to the marriage and to one another, and you must have a respect for your spouse. No matter how smart you think you are and whatever your background is, you have respect for your spouse. And when she suggests something that isn't what you think is on target, you don't immediately think her wrong. You think through what it is and why she's saying what she did and what it means. And yes, there were times I had to change I thought I had a target set, and I had to change that target. The bullseye of that target, I had to change some. And not leave it, but I had to change it because I could see what it would mean to us and to our marriage, and also then with the church.
Do you mind sharing, I know one possible example you might have in your mind that you had shared with me about, I think you had moved back, was it when you had moved back to Little Rock?
Yes, when we moved back to Little Rock after being in California for 1 year, as soon as I arrived, I had a phone call that said, wow, we hired somebody to preach last week. I wish we'd have known you were going to be here. We would prefer to have hired you to preach. So do the educational work and lead singing, and we'll like to have you at our congregation. So I did. The preacher ultimately he got transferred and left. And of course then they asked me to take the preaching. Well, I was young and full of vim and vinegar, and so I was preaching twice on Sunday and teaching 2 Bible classes each week, and still working 45 so hours with Safeway.
And then had your daughter come along at that point?
And then in February of that year, our daughter was born. And I was thinking about adding one more Bible class. Had even thought about moving so I could be closer to the church building. And came home one day and I pulled a map out of the drawer and laid it on the table. That's all it is, pull out a map and lay it on the table. And Mozelle turned and saw it, she said, let me tell you. If the company is asking you to transfer, I'll go anywhere in the United States, and I want you to take the transfer. I said, okay, that is what I'm getting the map out for. She said, on conditions. I said, okay. And she said, when we move, you will not start preaching twice on Sundays and teaching 2 or 3 Bible classes a week. And you will be involved with the family. And I said, okay. And thank you, Lord, for helping. I considered it a correction, getting me back on target. And so it did. I followed through with that and did not do that then for several years. But she agreed, but later it was all okay.
Well, the reason